Okay, we need to bring Roger on because I heard his voice.
Yes, I'm on.
Yes, oh, there you are. Awesome. Thanks, Roger. We were just having a bit of a chat. Everyone's posting in the chat where they're from. So thank you very much, everyone. I know that others will be joining that as we go through. So Roger is someone who needs no introduction in my world, but for some of you, most of you I do know Roger, but just for me to give an introduction anyway. So Roger is a futurist and social entrepreneur. He's the founder of the Genius Group, Entrepreneurs Institute and Entrepreneur Resorts. And Entrepreneur Dynamics. And I've had the pleasure of supporting, partnering with, working with, and potentially more so being mentored by Roger. I think I was probably over about 7 or 8 years now, Roger. So awesome opportunity to learn and grow from what I believe is one of the best. So I would love to bring you on and for you to say hi to everyone. And just in particular, Roger, what I'd love you to share right now is obviously crazy times for us at the moment, and being in the position of so many not knowing how to handle the times, and you know, being very much being part of your community too, have watched how you've pivoted and how you've changed so quickly. What was it like for you when this first started? Obviously, when COVID-19 was announced and it first started, where was your thinking? How quickly did you start to make those changes for yourself?
Yeah. Okay. Good to see many familiar faces here, and it's always a whole new experience because like this crisis is continuing to move at such a pace that what we're actually sharing at any point is changing pretty rapidly as well. So I would call this right now phase 3 on what is been happening over the last couple of months. Phase 1 was the moment it hit, and just having experienced crises in the past, like 2008, 2001, what happened in 1997 in Asia, the Asian crisis, even 1986, I remember even as a student, and just how much of a difference it makes. And actually having businesses in most of these crises where if you didn't move quickly enough, then you were too late already, right? So we straight away, as soon as this happened, in fact, even like getting out of America, I was in America with a event on Seattle. Seattle was actually the epicenter before New York became the epicenter. And at that point, America was really not really worrying about the crisis at all. We had the event on the Friday, it was Wednesday, and basically we had Sandra and Michelle both saying, listen, we shouldn't be doing this event, right? And I'm like, what are you even talking about? Like, what's like this might be an issue out in Asia. It's not an issue here. They're like, no, this is like going to affect people. Like if we have people end up actually getting coronavirus by coming to the event, that's our responsibility. We just shouldn't do it. And I was having a Crystal Circle session in San Diego. So I said, okay, guys, you guys figure it out for yourself. Cause like, if you decide you want to cancel the whole thing, cancel it. But I got to go on stage or work with the Crystal Circle members. And it just so happened that the actual person who was running the whole thing, which was Anna, who was in the Crystal Circle in the room with me, she wasn't even part of the decision-making process. But Michelle was out, like speaking to everyone around the world. They made all the decision, and she just came out and says, "Nope, we're canceling." And it was just cancelled that day. And so that night, I was like, "Okay, all right, well, you guys decided, so that's what we're going to do. We're going to cancel it." And they went and contacted everyone. They said, "Okay, we're going to do this more as a virtual thing and so on." And then that night was when Trump then said, "We're not going to let any more flights come in via Europe." And as soon as that happened, I was like, "Okay, this is actually getting very serious very quickly." And so I better get back to Europe now, because if I don't, I'm not actually going to get back before they close borders. And no one in Europe was talking about closing borders at that point. Like, there was no mention of it in the media or anything. It was just Trump saying that, but I straight away changed all my flights. I was meant to go to super camp the next day. I canceled that. I got Penny to change the flights the first thing next morning, got on a plane, got to Chicago. When I got to Canada, I went via Canada. So if they stopped me at New York, then I'd still be able to get out. Because then Canada would be the last to close the borders. So I went via Canada just for that reason. But I got to Canada, and Trudeau's wife was reported while I was at the airport as having coronavirus. I was like, geez, this is like this massive wave coming faster than I can actually fly. And by the time I landed in Poland, they actually closed the borders within 12 hours of me being there. So I was in one of the last flights in before they closed it. So, and that attitude of realizing that whatever the media is reporting is already too late, whatever other people already are thinking is already too late, and you have to preempt everything and be proactive, is really the basis of what we're doing right now with the Crisis Leadership Academy. It's like crisis management is when you've got a crisis and you're trying to manage it. Crisis leadership is when you're springboarding from a crisis and always being one step ahead, which is like if you surf a wave, that's how you surf, right? You don't wait for it to actually peak before you get on it. You actually got to get on it before it actually peaks. And we're at exactly that point right now. So as soon as I got back to Poland, got on a call with the management team we said, we need to have a plan very quickly for us to actually be one step ahead of this, not just for us, but also for everyone in our community, because obviously we've got a really big community. And it was really within a week of that, we had the whole plan together. We had the whole team together. We went through what that whole plan was. That was all part of phase one. And I'm happy to also go through what phase two, phase three is as well. But that's really how it all started.
Yeah, it's interesting because, I mean, watching you, I mean, you've had so much experience, obviously, in creating the business and getting it to where the level that it's at, and making changes as needed as things change around the world, and adapting to different changes. But this was just so different. It was so different. And there's so many people I know I've been speaking to that are still in that phase of, this is crazy, you know, I really don't know what changes to make at the moment in order to be able to, you know, create something that's going to be financially viable from a business perspective, or, you know, everything's been so offline, how do I bring it online? And just that level of thinking. And so the ideas are not flowing the way that they should, because obviously there's still that energy that's out there. And yet how many weeks ago was that, you know, that's first got announced, and yet people are still struggling with that idea. So you, and I've obviously been party to this, Roger, where it's been going through the stage of, you've announced that first webinar. I remember the first webinar that you did, that, you know, you put it out there to say, hey, I'm going to share with you what's going on. So at that stage, did you have a clear idea of the rest of the pathway, or were you still formulating that as you went?
Yeah, we're still formatting as it went. And this is like, these are two of the most important things, I'd say, for everyone, no matter what size business you have, is you always have to over communicate, and you have to increase your frequency. Like, we straight away, before we knew what we were going to do, went from weekly meetings to daily meetings, like daily. I haven't had daily meetings with my leadership team for a decade, right? But we knew just that was how important. And the last time there was a crisis like this was a decade, and we did it then as well. But we knew that was the most important thing to do. And over communicate it's through the communication, it forces you to have to go out and get information, especially if you take a leadership for your community. Like, we all know what that's like, right? Like, if there's a fire in the house or in a hotel or wherever you happen to be, right, and someone's taking the lead, you tend to follow them. But if no one's taking the lead, you've got to decide, am I the one who's going to take this lead? Back to your point, right, about the whole thing about, like, a lot of people still not doing things. You know, a lot of people have heard of the phrase, you know, fight or flight, right? As if that's the binary thing. You know, you're either going to kind of, like, you know, be proactive, or you're going to run away. But actually what humans do is the middle ground, which isn't fight or flight, it's fright. Like, fright is when you freeze. Like, fright is like, so you're not fighting anything. You're just stopping and saying, well, I guess I'll just wait here. And because the whole world has physically done that by going to lockdown, our brains go to lockdown as well, which is like, well, I guess I just got to wait here now, which is the worst thing you can possibly do, right? It's the same as sink, swim, and surf. Like that, like when you say, you know, when you say fright and you freeze, it's okay if you're freezing and you're on solid ground, because you can stand there for a while. But if you're basically freezing in the water, that's the sink. You actually sink. You actually start, like, going underwater. Anyone right now who's still frozen is going to be in very, 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 very bad shape within the next couple of months, because what's happening with the economy. And I've been explaining a lot about the economy as well, and I'm not the only one. There's plenty of other people out there, like Bill Gates and others that are like that I've actually, you know, talked about, like Ray Dalio, who's actually, like, being more communicative now than ever. Like, Bill Gates has done more interviews in the last, you know, 2 months. Ray Dalio has done more interviews in the last 2 months than they've done in, like, you know, a decade. And that's because they realize just how important it is right now to take leadership, because the governments of the world aren't taking the leadership that's needed for us to actually be able to grow ourselves as well. So at that point, as you mentioned, like, you know, what were we doing? I said, okay, in fact, one of the things I did was a Facebook Live. I just got to be sharing, and I was thinking about it always, not from what you're doing or where you're at, but what other people are doing or where they're at. You know, because if you're thinking about where you're at, you're going to be wondering, how do I make money, right? You're going to be wondering, how do I sell a product? But if you think about where other people are at, you're going to be thinking, well, what's the problem they have that I can serve them with, right? What's the challenge they're having that? So as I was sitting there one morning in Poland, I think it was about 4 days back, it was the next Tuesday, and I was thinking, geez, imagine how many other people are just like me, sitting at home, where they're realizing, like, I don't know what, my whole plan's gone out the window, right? Like, we had events, we run resorts, all these things generate like 80% of our revenues, and all our resorts were getting closed down and all our events are stopped. And so when you've got 80% of the revenues going and you're burning through $1.5 million in cost every single month, suddenly that becomes an issue, right? And you go, okay, so what are we going to do differently on this? And instead of me saying I have to solve that first, I thought, well, wait, hang on. The fact that I'm thinking about this in a positive way, a lot of other people won't be thinking in that way. best thing for me to do right now is start a Facebook Live and just talk to everyone who's going to be listening and saying, here's how I see things are going to go. Here's a good way to be thinking about it. Here's how we're thinking about it right now. And basically do a commentary on your own pivot. And so when I basically turned on the Facebook Live, within minutes, we had hundreds of people who came and joined. And I just realized that this thing was massive. And we actually went from that to do a webinar the next week. And we had 5,000 people on the webinar, which is like 5 times more than we'd normally get on a webinar with 1 week's notice. And we just saw straight away by action that that the whole world has changed so quickly. If we hadn't done these things, we wouldn't have had that. We wouldn't have even had the insight as to how we would actually go forward. But by doing that, we're like, okay, well, let's actually do a number of webinars for free, but let's also tell people we're going to do a full 4-week cash flow crash course. And we launched that within a week. And it was actually at the beginning of launching that, we then got our team together and put a full plan together for the following 3 months. So we put a Q2 plan together. We said, let's assume for the whole of Q2 all the way to June. I was looking at all the stats and like that was when, Trump was saying we're going to open by Easter. It's when England wasn't even in lockdown yet. Australia wasn't in lockdown. Like no one had really seen the importance of it. And one of the biggest things I was doing on the course in March was saying to people, listen, you might be hearing this and think I'm overreacting about the fact the whole world's going to go lockdown. I did some posts about here's exactly when England's going to go into lockdown. Here's what's going to happen in America and why they're going to also be closing everything down as well. Here's, this is just the maths of it. And pretty much within like a couple of days of when I was predicting it was going to happen, it all happened. And it's not just because I like being a futurist, it's because when you look at patterns, you can always predict what's going to happen provided there's an actual pattern. In the sun right now, like this week, we just had record numbers, 105,000 new infections, in the last 24 hours. That's going to go to 150,000 within the next, week and a half, right? So like numbers we've never seen before. But the press, they're kind of talking about it, but they're not really talking about it. But more importantly, how many people on this call are already preparing for a second lockdown, right? Like that the fact the second wave is already here. It isn't even a second wave, it's just the first wave that just kept on getting bigger, right? It never went away. So this is one of the biggest challenges is that for most people, they're not following what's really happening. And as a result, they can't plan ahead. And so the whole of that first phase was setting a plan in place where we were just going to pivot everything, which we did. And then that allowed us to then create onto second step. So one of the most important things I'd say for everyone is be okay with uncertainty, provided you have found certainty within the uncertainty. So as an example, in phase 1, we said, we know for sure we're not going to do events. We know for sure our results are going down. So we have to make some tough decisions, like how much revenues do we think we can generate by all of our online side. We said, we can do $1 million a month on that. We didn't know for sure. We said, we think we can do that. When the online was doing maybe $500,000 a month. So it's like, we're going to double how much we're doing online. But that means our costs have to come down by 60%. So we have a choice on cutting the costs. We either basically do what a lot of other people are doing and lay people off, which we didn't want to do because we knew that basically all our people were doing great things for us and it wasn't their fault this was happening. Or we basically get all of our leaders together and we say, look, do we have a culture which will allow us all to share the pain, share the gain? We'll all take a 40% cut. We'll pay ourselves back when we do our IPO in the New York Stock Exchange, which we're planning for next year. Like if we did that, would everyone say yes to that? And we actually spoke to the leaders and the leaders said, yes, we should do that. And it wasn't, not everyone was in agreement to begin with. Some people were saying, well, maybe we should just cut back the team. But when they heard my vision and the picture of what I really believed we should be doing and the culture, and more importantly, me saying, listen, if we're going to go out to other people and tell them what they should or how they should be doing, we have to be an example. And also, if in 10 years' time, my grandkids are coming back to me saying, Dad, what did you do? Or Granddad, what did you do during the great lockdown? What do you want to be saying as a story, right? We cut half our staff just because we wanted to save some money, or we kept with our vision. We kept everyone on board. Everyone basically took a cut, but at the end of it, they all ended up much better off because of where we ended up as a result of that. It's like, that's a much better story to tell. So we actually played into the story that it was going to be. And I'd recommend everyone do that as well. But by actually then having that certainty on our costs and certainty on the fact we were going to survive, I could then say 100% to everyone in our team and everyone out there, we're going to be fine through this, right? Like we're going to work it out one way or another. And that allowed us to have that certainty where everyone then goes, great, we're always going to go whoever's got greater certainty. And that's created so much attraction around what we've done. And I've seen the people that have struggled most and can't find the partnerships or can't get the right team members, it's because they themselves are not certain as to who they are or where they're going, or they're waiting for the next thing. I'll just give you one example of this. I think it's really, really important. We were having a conversation with Supercamp, who we were doing partnerships with. And Supercamp basically do all of their programs through physical camps happening in the summer. And so they're like, what do we do now? Because we don't, like, Trump says we're going to open up. This isn't April, it's July. This is like another, 3 months later before we even are running our camps. But no one's going to be buying the camps right now because they're not sure. What should we be doing? And I said to them, as long as you're trying to make decisions from uncertainty, you can make no decisions. So the very best thing to do is just create certainty. The way you create certainty is saying, we're not going to do a camp. Because the moment you say that, we're not going to do a camp, regardless of whether the crisis is happening or not, you're okay. You're going to have a plan, which is where you're not going to do a camp. You're now crisis independent. So everyone on this call, you get to choose when the crisis ends for you. And the crisis ends for you the moment you have a crisis independent plan, right? One that's not dependent on the crisis and decisions being made in the crisis. So when I said that to them, it freaked them out. They're like, but then how do we make money? It's like, well, that's the second question. Now let's focus on that question, right? And so now they've actually launched all of these online programs, and they've actually got a whole new plan based on the fact that they aren't basically running camps in summer. And it's a good thing they did that, because it's very clear now they wouldn't be able to run a camp in summer anyway. But having that decision is very important. And that leads on to this phase 2 plan that we put together, which was, okay, we had a plan of certainty for 3 months. Now we have basically a picture of the third and fourth quarter. What's our plan for the third and fourth quarter? And now that we've launched all the things that we've launched, we've actually just made some big decisions. We're not going to run any events for the whole year. So even if they open up the borders earlier, we're not planning on that happening. And also for all our resorts, we're not expecting any flights to be taken off internationally at all until 2021. So by saying that as well, we're not kind of like hoping that they're going to open so we can run some international events. We're just doubling down on our domestic strategies. So in South Africa, we're just going to market the people in South Africa. In Bali, just the people in Bali. And we'll work it out. We'll figure out a way to do that. But it means we can just get on with doing stuff instead of kind of like waiting for the government to decide something or for someone else to decide something as well. So super important. Always find certainty in the long term. Like, what's your big vision 5 years in the future? Because this is all going to go. So when it happens, what does that certainty look like? And in the short term, which is, okay, just the next 3 months, just the next 6 months, what can I absolutely put in place to know I have an absolute certain plan? And that's what we did as the next step. And it's a really, really super important thing for everyone at every level to do, or else you can't even move forward in the first place.
Thanks, Roger. Yeah, and I think for some, obviously, where they've been in a position where they've probably had a lot of uncertainty, and also been in a position where they can't see how they can pivot what they were working on before, and need to come up with new ideas and just don't know where to go to get that support, or, you know, they don't know what those ideas are. You know, what advice can you give for someone who's sitting here now, even after this amount of time, that's going, I just don't know what I should be doing. Like, it's just, it's not going to work. I can't see how it's going to work.
One of the big things that that we've been sharing at the moment, and as you know, and as many who know about the spectrum levels and what happens if you drop down to infrared or drop down to red level, is you can't think clearly when you're at that level, and the first thing you need is connection, which is not how do I start a business where I have no idea how to start it. It's how do I get connected with someone who's already got a business, which is already moving, which is already doing things. Like, you know, Amazon just hired another, like, 400,000 people. That's a ridiculous number of people they just hired. You know, Facebook just today had new record share price as a result of what's going on at the moment. And the acquisition space is growing like crazy. We just raised like just under $2 million when we started looking to raise $1 million with people who, like, this is our community, who've got money to invest and are looking for a safe place. So we gave them a safe place, and we said, we're going to go out and do acquisitions. And now my whole focus is acquisitions, right? Where I'm actually going out looking for those companies that really are in trouble, that we can save and that we can actually get a good deal on, and basically give those people jobs and give those customers all of the good stuff that's going to come from what we're doing to grow the education side of things. This week I've spoken to a handful of investment bankers in New York. They all are saying the same thing. They are busier than ever because there's so much money in the market that doesn't know where it needs to go. We've just had a situation just in the last 24 hours where, for the first time in history, the British central bank, the Bank of England, is now selling their debt at negative interest, right? So just imagine this happens, right? This is the bank coming to you saying, would you like a mortgage? And we'll pay you to take our mortgage, right? We'll pay you every month to take our mortgage. That's the same thing, right? When you go negative on interest, which means that, oh, you want some money? Well, in the past, you had to pay for that money. You had to pay interest for that money. Well, now you want some money? Well, can we please pay you money to take our money? So something really crazy is, and this happened to oil as well last month, because basically when there's so much supply of oil that all of the oil that's coming out of the ground has nowhere to go, and all the storage is filled up, right? So there's no place to even store this stuff. Then someone who's actually got a contract for that oil is going to say, please, can I pay you to take the oil off my hands? And this is oil that's costing like $20 a barrel to actually make. They're actually paying people to take that. So same thing's happening now with money, right? The government's saying, can you just pay to take the money? And in Germany, which has also gone negative, you've now got 100 banks just this week 100 banks who are now actually saying, listen, if you want to deposit any money with us, you better pay us money. We don't want your money because we don't know what to do with it. So if you want to pay us money, we're going to give you a service charge. That's also negative interest. And in fact, there's even some companies now who are saying, we'll loan you money and we'll pay you money to take our money, right? So this is a crazy, crazy world that we're living in right now, where basically for every one person who says, I don't have money, there's someone else paying for someone to take that money away from them. And this is how broken the system is at the moment. So for every one person who says, look, I've got this time, like the universe hasn't stopped paying us all 24 hours of time. Like this is one of the most important things, right? The actual fundamentals of what makes life work hasn't changed. And the fundamentals is that we wake up every day with 24 hours of time. If anything, our 24 hours of time have got richer because it's not stuck with as much being sitting in traffic jams, having to get onto a plane, basically being in an office with a whole bunch of people who are disrupting us. Like we've got more quality time now than any time in history, but that doesn't mean everyone's actually making the most of it, right? So for every one person who says, look, I've got all this time, but I don't have money, there's someone else who goes, holy cow, I've got all this money coming in, but I don't have any time, right? I've got all this stuff that's now taking place. So this is happening in our business right now. Now that every single time we do a webinar, we've got, the last webinar, the summit last week, we had 20,000 people on that summit. It's crazy. And then all those people are now doing all the programs with us. So when we went out to basically launch the Crisis Leadership Academy, we said, hey, we're looking for faculty members. And obviously, Terry, you're one of the faculty members. Some of the others in this call are actually, came on board to be part of it as well. And what is so incredible is like for every one new person coming on to help us, there's another 10 people coming on needing the help. And so because of that, and because everyone's looking for the education and the support, there's all those different ways that people make money as well. We launched the Trusted Buyers Club as basically a 21st century version of what was going on during the Great Depression. So like, I'll give you, we're running at the moment. This is something I actually really recommend that you do if you have kids. I started this when my kids were in their 7, 8 years old. I started something called Magic Time, where every month we would take one weekend and each one of my 3 kids would actually choose which weekend they'd be hosting us. And I would do pretty much like a conversation like this, but actually with practical exercises and so on with my kids, right? I thought, well, if I'm only teaching things to others out there, I want to teach my kids as well. And they all started with $1. I gave them all $1 when they're like 7 years old. And I said, let's see how much we can make that $1 worth, right? And that $1 has gone to 10,000, 100,000, $500,000, up to now $1 million. That $1 has just grown, because it's been like a good 15-year journey. My kids are all in their early 20s now. And now we actually have increased the frequency of the Magic Time, even though they're all in different countries. Like, Teresa's in Scotland, Kathleen and Luca both in Singapore, I'm in Poland. This Saturday, we're doing it again. We're getting on a call together where we basically are going through Magic Time. And I've been explaining the entire economic system to them and how money is lost, how money is made. And, as something that Jeremy Harris said, who, he says this great quote, which is money has not left the planet. Money has not left the planet. It's just finding new homes. Right. So the real question is, like, if you're sitting there in the desert and the money's not there, where did it go? Like, it's gone somewhere. In fact, there's more money now on the planet than ever before. So where did it go? Go to where the money is. And there's going to be someone there saying, I've got too much money coming in. I need help. I need time. Go work with those people, be their partner, learn from them, see what they're doing. They're all helping others as well, because there's no one who feels good about the fact that they've got a successful business and you've got basically, coming up to 25% unemployment going on. Everyone's trying to help other people right now. So if you're in that state, which is like, well, I need help, then don't start by asking who can help you. Start by saying, well, who can I help? Right? Who can I help that's already needing help? I've got time. They don't. How can I actually give some of my time to help them on that? What do I need to learn new? What new thing do I need to do? And then coming back to this point about, how the actual economic system works, basically the economic system has got 4 elements to it. And this is kind of all like, you go back and some of you, I'm sure, have learned economics. You'll know that these 4 elements all build on each other. So the Wealth of Nations, which is Adam Smith's kind of like, Bible on economics to begin with, starts with distribution of labor. So the very, very first level is, how do you turn time into money? So normally we think of turning time into money being the workforce, right? But obviously if you're an entrepreneur, you also need to know how to turn time into money. And if you've had to suddenly figure this thing out again, it may be that the models that you knew as to how to turn time into money, maybe you knew how to do this because you'd go knocking on a door and you'd meet someone for a coffee. Maybe you knew how to do this because you were running a workshop and people would come along, and in that workshop, they'd build enough trust with you that they'd want to do more with you, right? Maybe it was because you were meeting with a partner and that partner basically brought their people to you, and then they trusted you because they trusted the partner and you made money that way. But it was always because you found a line of trust where basically someone trusted you enough to then pay you money. And suddenly you couldn't even go out and meet those people, or they didn't even want to buy from you. And so when that happened, then suddenly, all of a sudden, you didn't know how to turn your time into money anymore. So this first level here is the first thing you need to figure out. Not how do I create a product, not how do I start a business, but how do I just turn my time into money right now, right? Now, if you figure that one out, and of course, lots of people don't have to figure that out because they can just go get a job. And if you get a job, then basically a business will figure that out for you. What then happens is the second level of the entire economy. And this first level generally is what makes up GDP, right? It's the whole gross domestic product of people just making stuff. The next level above that is when you actually then can say, you know what, I've actually figured out how to turn other people's time into money. I'm going to start a business, right? So all products and services on the second level is when you've effectively monetized that time and money into some kind of products. And that's when you have the whole consumer society, which is now like 90% of the economy, right? Or sorry, 70% of the economy. So that's the second level up. So when in 2008, we had the global financial crisis, very few people lost their jobs. I mean, like in America, the maximum that the unemployment went to was about 650,000 people. Now that's still a lot more than 200,000, which is normal. But 650,000 is a lot less than the 33 million that it is today. A lot less, right? It's like 2% of that. So you've got this really crazy situation where, sorry, 20% of that. So there's a really crazy situation where last time we had a financial crisis where the banks were the ones that were having all the challenges. Most people still went to the restaurants. They still went to the cinema. They still were earning money. They just found it much more difficult to go buy a house or to invest in something because their money wasn't worth so much. They found it more difficult to get a loan, but they could still run a business, right? So the first two of these levels were still intact. Then the third level above that is what happens if you've got lots of companies that are actually making all this money. You can then basically have an entire investment level which can make money off these people. Oh, we can have a property and we can actually rent, some of our space to a tenant or to a company. And so because there's money being made here, then the guys up here are actually going to be able to make money as well. But it depends on these two below working. So what happened during the crisis 10 years ago is the third level broke down because they basically just were a bit naughty and kind of leveraged their money far too much. But the two levels below that were still fine. And then the final level above that is the government, right? And the government level above the banks, above the investors, the government is the ones who actually can go and solve things by printing money if they need to, generally to the banks, who then actually pass it on to other people. The problem is if the bottom two levels break down, which is what's happened in the world today, our unemployment level is going to go to at least 25%, and it will take a long time to recover. But it also means that at least a quarter of all businesses, if not a third of all businesses, will close down and will not open up again. So Facebook just basically did a survey which came out this week where they surveyed all the small businesses, a big sample of small businesses. As of this moment, over 40% of all the small businesses that they surveyed have closed their doors, never to reopen again. 40%. I mean, this is unbelievable, the carnage that's being, and it's invisible at the moment. The media isn't getting enough information on this because the media is always a couple of reporting cycles behind. But that's what's happening in the world today. And so as that's happening at that level, it means that, of course, when you hear that, a debt defaults, I put a list of all the companies that are going to be going bankrupt just on the basis that they have debt that they need to repay. And they aren't able to repay that debt. They're not able to roll it over. So they have to go into, Virgin, I said, look, the first company that's going to go is going to be Virgin Australia. And I said that a day before, then it actually came out that Virgin Australia was going bust. And I knew that was happening because they had a $500 million debt, a debt that was actually repayable that week, and they just couldn't do it. And then on top of that, then there's JCPenney is next, Neiman Marcus is next, and Sears is next, and each one of them one by one over the last, I've just seen them go one by one. And what is so heartbreaking about this is knowing this stuff is all happening, and most people have no awareness that this is happening. So they're not designing what they're doing in a way to actually be aware things are not going to go back the way they were. So don't hope that you can go back to your old business model. Know that if your business model was not going to exist, you have to figure it out, a new business model. And don't start by saying, well, that means I have to go out there and figure it out for myself. Start by saying, well, who's already doing one that I can go and be of value to, and go be of value to it, right? And make some money off that, because everyone's paying percentages out. And then once you're selling stuff that's already being sold, then you can actually find new pathways. And the good news is this will lead you to a whole new world where, as we rebuild the economy, it's going to be a very different economy we rebuild. The old one's not coming back. But with the new one and the way we do this, the people who are going to have the most successful businesses 10 years from now are the ones who are actually taking action right now. But it's all within a window of about 6 months right now, which means don't wait a year before you start doing this. Now's the time to be taking that action and actually making the decisions on the next steps forward as well.
Oh, that's awesome. What's some other questions that I've been getting, and I've been actually having the privilege of being able to speak to a lot of the those in the Crisis Leadership Academy, doing the discovery calls, and I just need to find out the best way to move forward, and what's the best model, what should I be doing? And my advice to so many is watch what Roger's doing, because he's testing the model before we come along and do it, because you're that so many steps ahead. So even looking at the way, like I said, when we started from the beginning, when you first did your webinar, which led to what we promote, do your free and then go into your next low level, your entry level product, and then the next one up. And the process of having a webinar, then getting people on calls and converting those calls and getting that personal relationship with people, because there was that uncertainty with people, and giving them a level of certainty through an offering and that personal connection, and then leading on to the next step. How effectively do you think, and from my perspective, it works effectively in pretty much every industry, but how effectively, in your opinion, does that model work for others? It obviously works well in like an educational type company where you've gone from events to online.
You're back.
Yeah, back.
Yeah,
so
I got you.
How effectively do you think the model that you have, where you've gone through the free webinars, getting people on calls with, the Genius Igniters, giving them potential offers, and then bringing out new things, how effectively do you think that can work for others in other industries right now, that model?
So the first thing to say is that in every industry, there's an effective model. That's the first thing to say. So the one you're saying, which is our model that we're using, does it work for every industry? No, you'd want to change it for different industries, but there's always an effective model. Like, could you run a webinar, if you want to sell your house, could you run a webinar, and from the webinar, could you then have calls, and from the call? Well, you could, but that would not be the most effective way to do it, right? I mean, like a much more effective way to do it, if you actually really want to sell your house, is actually be able to pinpoint who are the people who are most in need of a house right now, and what's the pathway that you can actually be going down to find that right person, to be able to then actually say, well, if you want a house, I've got a really, really good deal for you to have a house right now. I know you lost your house. Here's a bit better. And know that solving the problem of someone actually wanting your house, and even being able to willing to pay some money for the house, will then solve the problem of how you find a buyer who can then come in and actually buy the house, because you've now found the person who actually wants to actually pay the money to be in the house, right? So the whole point of this is that there's always a way to solve the problem, but it's about understanding how trust flows. Someone will trust that they'll buy the house and get a return if there's already someone who's actually got a contract on the house, but someone won't just come in and buy the house because they think now's not the right time to buy a house. Now is the right time to buy an investment. So if you package your house as an investment, you can sell your house, right? So the whole point about this is that there's always a path of trust. What I think a lot of people misunderstand is it's about a model. Like, I need an online model, or I need to have a retail shop, or I need to have a store, I need to have it's nothing about the model. It's about lines of trust, which is why I can mentor all sorts of businesses and really, give value in terms of what's the next thing you should do. But it always is going to start by me understanding, well, what is that path and what does that look like? When it comes to things happening remotely, and it doesn't matter if you're doing it online, you can do it on a phone call. You don't need to even, you can do it on your mobile phone, right? You don't need to basically be doing webinars and things like that. But the most important thing is to get that our trust can only grow at the speed of or at the bandwidth of our attention. So if you meet someone face to face, we've had this experience. Like, I'll have dinner with someone, and at the end of basically an hour and a half of eating dinner, I go, I trust this person, right? I really trust this person. If this person actually wanted to do business with me, I'd go into partnership with this person, right? So that can happen in a very short period of time. No one's going to come onto a webinar in an hour and a half and trust someone, right? They might trust to say, hey, this was worth my time. I'm going to book up for the next thing, but it doesn't mean you're suddenly going to be my partner, right? And so what's really important is to think about this a little bit like if you wanted to cook a chicken, right? And if you happen to have like a massive like industrial oven, right, then it wouldn't take you, like, you could cook a bunch of chickens at the same time in that oven, right? It's like, I'm going to bring everyone into a workshop. We're going to go on a retreat for the weekend. And you can build huge amounts of trust, because basically your bandwidth of attention is like 360 virtual. You've got everything there. And so you can actually build trust very quickly. Someone who's used to doing that, who then suddenly goes online, that's like trading in your industrial oven, which is like 360, like blast furnace, for basically like, a little, tabletop stove. Right? Where it's like, geez, I'm not even going to be able to cook one chicken at it. In fact, I'm going to have to cut up the chicken, right? In fact, I'm going to have to actually come back and like cook a few times in a row. So when you're online, that's what you're really dealing with. People can only take so much attention and put it onto basically a screen or onto a mobile phone. And so what that means is that trust can still be built to the level where someone wants to pay you a lot of money, wants to give you basically all their time to be a partner, but it's going to take longer. It's going to take more touch points, and it's going to take you being intelligent about exactly at what point does someone switch from enough trust at this level to enough trust at this level. So if you were to say to me, well, even though every different business might be different, is there at least some kind of basis behind all of this? And the answer is yes. And the basis behind it is two parts. One part is, are you doing what you love? And the other part is, are you understanding what your customers love? That's the first part, the North Pole and South Pole. And as you know, at the beginning of Crisis Leadership Academy, we don't start by saying, let's go through what the different business models are. We start by saying, like, in 5 years' time, if you look back at this crisis and see this crisis was the best thing that ever happened to you, what would your life have to look like? You know, what would you now be doing with your time? What would you be doing with the people around you? What kind of difference would you be making in the world? As you know, we talk about the Ikigai, which is all about your purpose, your passions, your talents, your way you're making money. And there's a very good chance that when you actually map it out and go, well, this is what I'd love my life to look like, there's a good chance it didn't actually look like that before the crisis, which means the crisis is brilliant in actually clearing out the old, giving you a chance to reset, and actually really going for what you really want now. And going, this is really what I want, right? So that's actually a really important part to do before the second part. But then the second part, which is, okay, but what is it your customers really, really are needing right now, is probably not whatever your product was before, right? Because everyone's got different needs now. Or another way to say it is everyone's got a different problem now. So if you started by trying to solve the problem that your customer has, instead of doing that, then that can change everything, right? So as an example, right? Like, you know, I mentioned Jeremy earlier. You know, Deborah and Jeremy, they're in Australia, and basically their business, which is Grow CFO Co, it was actually helping companies to just manage their, you know, numbers and their financials. And when I had a call with them, I said, listen, you guys should actually have your own product, which is for pivoting in the crisis, right? You're going to come in, you're going to help a company to figure out the numbers, cut the cost down so they can be sustainable, figure out new revenue streams and what that would mean in terms of cash flow, where they can get easy cash from. You're going to help them to do all of this. And this is going to be really high value for them to work with you right now. They're basically like run off their feet right now with business because they went and did that. So if you go to the website, you'll see that that's there now. Everyone's like, can you please help me as well? And the call we had yesterday, I was like saying, guys, if you're really ready for the next level, that's a great level if you want to keep on being busy, working at one level. But the number of people that now actually want to go out there with the money they have and do acquisitions, and one thing they know they need to do if they're going to go and acquire other companies is understand the financials of the company and whether it's a good deal, what's the best price they can go in at to actually make this work. If you actually provided that as a service, anyone who actually is looking to grow for acquisition, then come to us. You'll be making 10 times more money and you actually be 10 times high value as well. So now they're, okay, great, we're going to go do that now, right? So there's always that next step. Do they go do what? They haven't done a single webinar. They don't have to do a webinar because they already have trusted partners who are bringing people to them, right? Like what's the first step they do? Do they do some kind of a workshop? No, they do one-to-one calls, right? But the one-to-one calls actually have got a very specific like an outcome of that 1 hour together, where they're going to look at your numbers, come to your numbers with you, we'll actually go through, already demonstrate what value we can deliver. So at the end of that hour, they're like, oh, wow, that was really high value. How can we go further from here? It's like, well, okay, here's how we're going to work together. And then from there, it's just so easy to then have new customers come on board because of that. So what does their system compared to our system that we're running with the webinars and so on have in common? What they have in common is the fact that there are always going to be 4 different levels of trust. And you need to know, if you're going to be moving forward, what those 4 levels are, because if you don't, you're going to be constantly stuck not having business. The first level is your followers, who are the people who are paying you attention. So most people who've lost business right now, if they said, well, who out there is actually paying attention to me? The ones who have nobody, they're in big trouble right now. Because like, if someone isn't even willing to pay you attention, how on earth are they going to pay you money? Right? Attention is actually the number one thing that at the moment people have more of than ever before. So I noticed when I did the actual Facebook Live, hey, people are paying attention. So if they're paying attention, how can I make this worth their time? All right, I'm going to do a free webinar and see if that's worth their time. Like, so, and I'm not trying to sell them anything. I'm just saying, look, I'm going to do this thing over here with more value, but now you're going to have to pay me time as well as attention, because you can't just do this on Facebook. We're actually going to do it over here. So someone who says I'm paying attention is usually doing it either via social media like Facebook or Instagram, or in the case of Deborah and Jeremy, what the people paying attention were the ones who were not paying them time, because they were actually working with some of their partners, like, you know, other lawyers or accountants and so on. But they were paying attention because they're already speaking about them. So for example, anyone, Terry, that you have in your community who, including on this call, by the way, who might be hearing what I'm saying and says, you know what Roger's saying is worth my attention. That doesn't actually mean they're going to spend any time with me. They might just say, that was really helpful. Thanks very much, Terry. And never look at my website or come and see anything I do, right? But I'm still there basically making sure when I'm on this call with you, I'm giving as much value for that attention as possible, right? However, if some of those people on this call go, you know what, that was worth enough, I want to go check out some of Roger's stuff, they've just moved from someone who's at a trust level where they're willing to pay me attention to the second level up, which is a community now. I'm going to go join Roger's community. I'm part of Terry's community. I want to be part of Roger's community as well. If they're in my community, they're not spending as much time as you, right? So as a result of that, there's a trade-off of their time now. They're saying, I'm willing to pay some time. So for each of you to think, okay, well, how many people do I actually have or do I know of who are paying me attention but not time? Because they're either some part of someone else's group or they're actually seeing me on a social media or via something like this. And then how many of those are actually moving each day or each week into paying me attention? Paying me time, which means that they're now part of my community. This is people who might sign up for something because they're going to get something from you separate. They might be having a call with you, right? Where they're saying, I'm willing to have a call with you just to hear more about how you might be able to help me. And all of those people who are coming to that next level, you can measure that, right? Whatever kind of business you have. If you happen to be selling airplane parts, it's the same thing. Who's paying me attention? Who's actually paying me time? And if you don't have mechanisms for people to pay you time, they're never going to say whether or not what you're doing is worth their time, which means they're never going to say whether it's worth their money. So that second phase, for a lot of people, we've noticed, they're going, oh, I get what I'm doing wrong. I'm not actually delivering a way for someone to actually get a sampling for free of my best stuff, where I'm helping them, not just saying, here's my best stuff, but I'm helping you right now in what you're doing for free, right? And if that's worth enough time, you might make a decision to do something with me, right? That's all. And you're not even looking for the ones who want to do something with you to actually come on board and pay you money at that point. You're just saying, okay, would you be interested in making a decision as to whether you do or not? And that's the third step, which is someone choosing to go from community to prospect. And then someone at the prospect level is someone who's saying, I'm here to make a decision. Maybe it's a phone call you're doing with them. So in the case of Jeremy and Deborah, that's exactly it. It was a phone call. In our case, it was something like, a webinar that leads to an actual call with one of our team, right? But something that basically we're saying, just come and make a decision on this. For some people, it's a website where they're coming to see if they want to buy something or not. And they'll look at the website, they'll look at the information on it, and they'll say, is this worth a decision? And if they don't say yes, it doesn't actually mean they've gone back to being a follower, right? It may be they're still a prospect. They just didn't say yes, not because they're saying no, they're just saying not right now, or I didn't understand enough about it. So we make most of our sales. Well, in fact, we never sell to someone who is a follower. We never sell to someone in the community. We'll always make sure they earn their right to be sold to, or for them to buy, where they already have to be making a decision with us. Then we'll tell them what we actually have to offer. And if they say they don't want it, at least we've guided them in the best way, and we'll give them other options of what they want to do. So at no point are we actually physically selling to someone because we know how to sell. We're physically selling someone because someone was ready to buy it, which is a totally different thing. And understanding what that cycle is means that you can always find a way to go from the follower to your community, to your prospect, to then your customer. And if you're not getting customers, either it's because you don't have enough followers, or you don't have enough community, or you don't have enough who are your prospects. And if you understand that process, you can always fine tune and get to where it is. And believe me, everything that even we're teaching about how you go about building trust right now on things like Zoom will totally disappear within a year from now, when 5G comes out and people are going to be doing things in virtual reality, and we're going to be building trust in an entirely different way from even the things we're doing right now. But what won't change is that we only ever want to actually give something to someone else when we trust them enough. And if you understand that, then you really get the whole point of being an entrepreneur, is for you to be a master of trust, to understand how trust grows and how you can build trust with other people as well. And that makes the world a better place if you do that. It means you no longer have to go get a job. You can just figure out how to create a job. And if you can figure out how to create a job, it's not just creating a job for you, it's creating a job for other people as well. So the whole basis of everything we do is all based on how can we stop people thinking education is about people getting a job, because frankly, that's clearly not worked when you've got like 1 in 4 people not working. So what about a whole new way of doing it, which is everyone figures out how to create a job. How do I create value enough that builds trust, enough that someone actually wants to buy something from me? We can all learn that. And that's part of what we're doing at Genius School, where we're teaching kids how to do this right now as well.
Wow. So I do understand that you've got to go, Roger, you've got a call to get to, but if you could leave us with something, what's next? What's next for you? I mean, obviously where we're at the moment, we've got Crisis Leadership Academy, you've created the Trusted Buyers Club. What's next? What are the plans for the community next?
So the first thing, first of all, thanks for having me on, and sorry if I've been talking too much, but I get very passionate about this. So the first thing that I just want to say to everyone in terms of what's next, something I said back in March at the very beginning of this, I gave the story about what happened in 2004 with the Asian tsunami. So what happened with the Asian tsunami is that at the time, a first wave came, and the wave was about 3-4 meters high, which is about double the height of a human, with massive power that came. But it came pretty slowly, and basically most people got out of the way of the wave and climbed trees and got out. Then the wave disappeared, right? And it's like everyone's like, "Wow, that was a big wave." And what happened when it disappeared was you had a choice at that point if you'd been there, which is either get to high ground saying, "Well, that was just a warning," or, "Oh, the wave is over," right? It's like, "Oh, that's okay." The vast majority of people actually got so curious about this wave and the fact that the wave then disappeared and that went further out than ever before. And it was like, wow, that they actually stayed where they were talking about it, or they went even closer to the water. And then it was actually a full 8-9 minutes later. That's a long time later when people even were forgetting about the first wave when the real wave came. And the real wave was like 18 meters high. I mean, it was like so much bigger than that first wave. And that's what killed 400,000 people. And we're going to hit 400,000 people. Like we were hitting already over 300,000 dead. We're going to hit the same number of people that died from COVID, that died from the tsunami within the next month. So like this is bigger than the tsunami, right? But this is only the first wave. So I just want to say that first of all, because if you're not thinking that way, then you might do exactly what those guys did and just kind of get close to the wave thinking, oh, the wave's over. But if you think there's a bigger wave coming, then two things are going to happen. One is you're going to get to high ground. And the second thing is you're going to warn as many people around you as you can to get up with you. The way they're going to get up with you is not by telling them. The way they're going to come up to you is to actually add so much value that they're just going to follow you and come up with you as well. But I wanted to share that first of all, because everything we're doing is designed around that. So what we're doing at the moment is that we're actually launching Junior School, which is going to be taking over from the option of sending your kids off to school right now in Australia, in America, where you can actually get a full education from 3 years old up to 18 years old on how to be an entrepreneur. And we're doing it online as well as basically in groups all around the world with micro schools. And we believe that we're going to have over 100,000 people on that school within a year. We're going to have over a million within 10 years in that school because it's so needed right now. So we're solving a really big problem that's out there. And that school does not end when you're 18 years old. That keeps on going right through to 80 years old so that everyone can actually be learning these things as well and then passing these things on to others. So by far, that is the biggest thing from our side. And we're still on track with our IPO. We're still doing all those different things. And we've pivoted a lot of the stuff that we're doing. So we are, basically making sure that, we're being that example, as you mentioned, in what we're doing. But I just want to leave everyone with that thought around the fact that like, this is just the first wave. And we haven't even started seeing the beginning of it yet. We've just seen the warning signs of it. And so if you think about it that way and say, well, how long is this going to last? At least 5 years. Plan it for that. And if you plan for the worst, you can still hope for the best. I mean, maybe I'm totally wrong. Well, then you've won both ways, right? But if you don't plan for it and I am right, well, then you're in big trouble, right? So just be thinking in that way. And then follow all the stuff that we do, follow what Terry does. It's all awesome. And we'd love to be following the things you're up to as well. So thanks very much for having me on the call.
Thanks, Roger. I really appreciate your time. So we'll let you go and head off to your call, and I'll ask everyone else if they can stay on. I've got something special to share. So awesome. Thanks, Roger.
Thanks, guys. Bye.
All right. Wow, how awesome was that? It's interesting because so much of what Roger's been doing of late has, it's super challenging to get that time with him and to be able to get that space where we can actually get him in a position where we could get him in person live. And, I had a conversation with him before and, as we were planning this, and he said, if I can fit it into my schedule, absolutely, I'll be there, but we might have to pre-record it. And I went, no, I don't want it pre-recorded. I want you guys to be able to experience Roger in person, because a lot of the stuff, as with many of us, is pre-recorded. And, this perception is that you're speaking to someone or you're listening to someone live, and in actual fact, we're not, we're listening to a recording. We had Roger made time for this. Now, Perth Impact Entrepreneurs, which is what this is that you're listening through at the moment, is one of Roger's models. So he created city leaders, and from the city leaders we created socials and networking groups. Now that had to totally change, obviously, because right now we can't do them in person anymore, so we had to pivot online. What it meant is, as we were going online, it started attracting more of a global audience. So we've changed it from Perth Entrepreneur Social to Perth Impact Entrepreneurs, which becomes a component of what we're doing. And the greater picture is we are now creating global impact entrepreneurs, which is bringing this all together. So I've got something I do want to share with you, and I'm just going to open my screen and share with you to give you a bit of insight what we're doing, because it's like very much in alignment with everything Roger's doing. This is part of it. I know so many of you on here, you know that I'm a mentor for Roger with his Crystal Circle and Crisis Leadership Academy. I'm one of the facilitators on that. I can't wait till Bali's back with flights so I can go back and facilitate iLab. And so what is happening here with myself and my team, we've created something that is still part of this whole process. But it's something that's very powerful that we can all be part of. And I've identified where there's some gaps. So we've looked at things from the perspective of all that's being offered and say, how do we actually come in and add more value to what is already being shared by Roger and others that are out there at the moment. And, you know, right now, this is just following on. So this is our perthimpactentrepreneurs.com website, which my team will be putting into the chat so that you can go and check this out for yourself. But just to give you an insight into what it is, it's a membership program that we've created to fill some gaps. And initially, the idea was to create this for Perth. And then obviously, like I said, we've gone global. So we've created something far greater than that, where we want, like Roger said, to have that trusted community where we're adding value. So it's playing the end game with Roger. It's not like the either or, it's playing the end game. So it's really about getting in and bringing together, like we've been doing, like I've brought Roger into this mix, and creating some amazing impact through people who have already got the experience, who already got their cards are stacking up. If we go back to the picture up there, and they're already in the position where they can support each and every one through this process. So we're bringing together these experts and hoping for you guys to be part of this as well. So we've got a membership program that we're offering, and this is not for you to make any decisions right now. There will be a decision you need to make, but it's not for me to ask you to make any financial decision at the moment. It's for you to consider a potential of being part of a community, which is an extension. It's part of Rogers, but an extension to that. So what this is, like I said, it's a membership. What we've got is massive value. We've decided to make this a no-brainer for everyone to come on. So as we've been doing, we've been running these free webinars, and I've been modeling very much off what Roger's doing because this is part of what he's doing. So we're looking to bring into more of the how-to stuff. So these webinars are going to be available anyway, the same as like the interview with Paul Dunn and Roger, and those are going to be available anyway. But what we want to bring into our members is some of that real, what I know I've been asked for over the years with everyone I've been working to, but I just need to know how to do that. I really, you know, it's great. It's a great strategy. You're a coach. You tell me to go and do it, but I really need to know how to do it. So we're bringing in experts that are going to be able to take you through exactly how to do the things that you need in your business right now. And if you've done your profile and you understand your flow, you'd know there's a lot of strengths that you don't have and you really don't want to pick up, but other people do. So it's being able to either have your team supported or you supported, and creating that level of support. We've also got some summer and events which you will get included in some of the other workshops that we're doing, that we're going to offer special deals for you to be able to attend as well. What I've brought into the mix is very much an accelerator program. You can see, you can read for yourself. Excuse me, tickle on my throat. It's a 6-month program. What I've decided is to create modules with all the how-tos in it. So it's eight modules, 2 training videos per week. But not only that, if you can do them in the 8 weeks, if you choose, you also get 6 months support from me. So every single week you get a Q&A session with me to go through the challenges that you experience and any solutions that are there. That gives you an insight to what's in it. Excuse me. Something else that's really key that we've realised, Roger just spoke about, businesses and people do business with people they trust. So we've created a directory of trusted people and trusted businesses. This is a global directory, so forget that it's Perth with the name. It's beyond that. It's for all of us to come together where we know that people are truly trusted. So you get to be part of that directory, and you get profiled. I'm losing my voice when Roger's chatting and I'm losing my voice. You get guidance in setting up a powerful profile. We take you through how to, and then support you and do an interview. So you've got something straight away to take to market as a promotional opportunity. We've got experts coming in to support in all this. We're going to give you spotlights. I'm a star profile. I'm very much about promoting what you do. So anyone that comes into that directory, it's how best we can promote you and get you connected in with the other businesses and clients as well. Professionally edited video interview, as I said, and the connection with the other people in the community. We've got brainstorming roundtables, we've got a book club, we've got strategic connections all across the world, and so on and so forth. And you can see, and this is very much connected to the impact side of what we're doing. You know, we've been in, we've had Paul Dunn, we've got other organisations that we want to be able to support as well. So you really need to go and read this for yourself because there's so much more involved. Now, I'm going to tell you what the price is, but just out of, I got together with my team today and we were just saying, wow, are you kidding me? There's that much value. And we're asking to join a membership and to gain all that value. And, you know, the full price of this is $9.97. Our launch offer is $5.97. This is per year. So it's a per year. Myself, when I do a strategy call with someone, and obviously at the moment I'm doing them with Roger, when I do them myself, I charge that just for one strategy call. So, you know, that's anyone who comes on and gets that accelerator program, which, like, remember I said is all the how-to, gets me and doing basically potential to have strategy calls out of that. Now, the special deal that I was telling you about, because you can go in and obviously read this. Hang on, we'll just scroll down. I've got to show you this, the extra bit. I'll tell you that I'll come back to the special deal of what it is. But what it is, this is about you stepping up, stretching out and settling in and creating the businesses that you'll be in these situations and creating the businesses that you know you really want at the moment and you're just not sure how to achieve it. And maybe there's some programs in that you'd want to do, but financially you just don't want to take the risk to back yourself. So we've made this super, super affordable from that perspective. Like I said, you can go and check this out. There's Annalisa and myself are at the helm of this. Annalisa is that the forefront and the founder of the directory and put that all together. And she is actually the reason that I'm doing all this at the moment, because of her energy and her team and her expertise, which are now part of my team as well, have come together to support, to create and fill the gaps that we know are out there based on our own experience. And here's our beautiful team that is supporting behind and are on this call as well. So welcome, ladies. There's some testimonials you can go and read, some people that have worked with me over the time. Plenty more of those, got them from Roger, got them from Paul Dunn. But this is not about me. This is totally about you. I want to bring, and Annalisa and I want to bring to you guys what it is that we know will give the biggest support for you. And so all I'm asking you to do to take action, and my Calendly link will be put into the chat. So when you see that, please click on that. You make the decision what you want to do with that Calendly link, but click on it so you've got it, because once we finish this call, obviously you haven't got that. Yes, you can get it from me in the future, but I want some people to take action. So I'm going to have a call potentially with as many of you that want to click on that link and book a call with me. And the offer will be $100 off that as well if you choose to join. For the first 10 that come on now is $497 for the year. It's crazy. I mean, we have discussed how we can even do it ourselves. And this is not for me to do the big sales pitch, because people who know me know that that's not my forte. My thing is giving value and creating a community where we can contribute to each other and impact back. So if you do see a value in that, please click on that link, book a time with me. Let me give you some strategies and support, but also let's see if you qualify to be in this, because we want to make sure everyone is the right person in this group, and that together we can build a community that's even better than any others that we know is out there. So let us be the starting point for that. So I'm just going to stop sharing my screen. And I want to thank each and every one of you from the bottom of my heart for coming on and taking this time. It's my passion, without any doubt, to bring the best of the best to you guys, and to also to support you to grow your businesses. My passion and purpose has always been, through quality education, to create the ripple. So if you just have one little difference out of attending these webinars or being part of what we're doing, then I'm fulfilling my dream. And that's all this is about for me. So click on that link. Hopefully we get these bookings put in. If you want to know more, please do check out the website and check out what the membership is about. And Kathy will talk more about this too, because this is what I've been telling you about. On that note, wish everyone a beautiful morning, afternoon, evening, wherever time it is for you. And thanks again for Roger for coming along. And next 2 weeks, we have got an amazing guy from the US who's going to speak to you about videos and the importance of video in particular. Now we're all sitting at home and like we're doing right now. So how to make it super easy. And this guy's awesome. So I can't wait for you to meet him. He's watch this space. All right, everyone. Thanks for coming on. I'll talk to you all soon. Bye.